Saribhai, yes, we are all celebrating, as you saw the pictures there on our screen, we're all celebrating this particular win. But you'd have to say, I'm sure, like me, you may have been biting your nails too. Narrow escape for the Indian team in the end?
Yes, you can say it's a narrow escape because, look, when you score over 250, most teams generally win. And therefore win comfortably. But because this is such a good pitch, this is such a good pitch to bat on, and England also had depth in batting. That's why the result was such a close one.
Okay, yes, it was a good pitch to bat on, as Mr. Gavaskar there is suggesting, and that wouldn't have been easy then. Because you're talking about the good pitch and the amount of runs that India has leaked, I'll get to the batting, which was the positive for India, but let's talk about the runs that India leaked. Lots of questions there then for the Indian bowlers to answer after this performance?
Yes, I think the question could be that, I think they didn't get, they have to decide which line to attack. And the first 6 overs are very difficult. First 6 overs become crucial. That is where they've got to get their line absolutely right. If they can get their line right, they can maybe not go for 15, 20 runs and over. But if you start to go for 15 runs and over at the start itself, that when you're talking about in the first 6 overs, you're looking at 70 runs, 80 runs being taken off your bowling. And that means that your opposition has got off to a good start.
Okay, one very interesting thing, Saiva, and I'll share this with our viewers as well. When India were cruising, they had got 253, then got quick wickets of England. I was on a WhatsApp with you discussing that, maybe the game will be early. Maybe we'll do our show pretty early. And you warned me. You said, no, wait and watch. This is going to be a close game. Who knows? England might win too. I want to know, in that scenario where I think the win predictor was probably not even giving 1% chance to England, you are the one who said, no, this is going to be a close encounter. What prompted you to say that? What is it that you were watching on the ground that you thought this can be close from there?
Well, what prompted me is the fact that, England has got also batting depth. And because of the batting depth, what they needed was a couple of partnerships. When you're chasing in a partnership where, you're scoring at almost 2 runs a ball. So, I mean, if you've got you get 60 or 30 deliveries, a partnership with 60 or 30 deliveries, that kind of a partnership was needed. And you wanted somebody to play the innings of his life. And I think that is exactly what happened.
That's true. That's true. You needed some sort of a partnership. England got that together, but I think they'd lost too many wickets by the end. And of course, India also notched up a record totally. It was never going to be easy. Fair to say, Saibhai, once again, that man, every time I look at India's performance with the ball, he stands out. Jasprit Bumrah today picks up 1 wicket. Also, economy 8.5. According to his standards, may be high, but I'm looking at a game where 500 runs have been scored and he bowls the tough overs, the crucial overs for India and goes with that economy. Was Jasprit Bumrah the difference today once again?
Yes, Jasprit Bumrah was the difference because he is the kind of bowler who will occasionally be taken in an over for some runs, but he will also get you wickets and he'll bowl with the most important over. So therefore, I think he was the big difference. And I think that is somewhere where I think the other bowlers should be learning. Arshdeep also bowled 1 good over, but always, after the 6th ball is the one which actually sets the batters free. And that is something that India really need to work on. That you bowl 5 good deliveries, but the 6th ball goes for a 6. That means that all over has been, the opposition has made up for that.
Yeah, that I think is a very pertinent point that Mr. Gavaskar is alluding to. You bowl few good deliveries, but it's those 1 or 2 bad balls in a over that actually puts paid to all the previous efforts that you've had. But Saibhai, we look at the scorecard. I spoke to you about Jasprit Bumrah, his economy rate. I'm going to talk to you about Sanju Samson, 89. Now, these are standout performers that you can look at the scorecard and say, yes, great contribution. One thing that will not be shown on the scorecard was Axar Patel's contribution while fielding. Now, fielding has been that one area that was India's problem leading up to this semi-final. I know you are one of those rare players that is, I don't think a lot of our viewers know, he got a man of the match for catching, for taking multiple catches in a game. I don't think Axar will, Saibhai, get a man of the match today because there are better performers there like Sanju Samson. But just tell us a bit about those catches that Axar took, and how did that contribute to India's win?
Yes, big contribution. Particularly that catch of Will Jacks, because he ran 24 meters to his left, took the catch, had the presence of mind to toss the ball up to Shivam Dubey, who also had the presence of mind to converge on the ball and to take that catch. So I think that was the big difference. Yes, I think the earlier catch also was an outstanding catch, but that time when the partnership between Bethell and Jacks was taking the game away from India, for Axar Patel to complete that catch was absolutely out of this world.
Saibhai, I promised to our viewers that we'll also talk about Sanju Samson. Consistency is that attribute. We don't look at Sanju Samson or we don't, appreciate that bit of his batting. We know that he's got stroke play. He looks very attractive to the eye when he's really timing it well. But consistency is something that we've seen from him in this tournament. That virtual quarterfinal versus West Indies, now 89 versus England in a semi-final. Fair to say, at the moment, he's just batting on a different planet?
He's batting on a different planet, you could say. He's batting, as if he's seeing the ball as big as the planet, as if he's seeing the ball as big as the full moon today. Because, some of the shots were just outstanding. There was that front foot pull of Jafra Archer for a six, which went into the first floor of the Tendulkar stand, which just tells you. And that ball wasn't a slow delivery. It was bowled at about 148 kilometers per hour. And yet, Sanju Samson had the time to get under it and hit it over that wide long on for a massive six. Then the drives along the ground, the cut shots that he played, the pull shots, of course, he's very, very good at. He gave you an exhibition of pure batting. And, in T20 cricket, purity in batting is very seldom seen because there's a lot of cross-path shots, etc., a lot of, sort of slog shots. But in Sanju Samson's innings, you hardly ever saw that. You didn't see that against the West Indies in Kolkata, and you didn't see that today as well. Brilliant batting.
I can't help but think of the occasion, Saibhai, and the venue, and you'd get what I'm trying to get to. The last time England played such an important semi-final of a World Cup on this particular venue, you were part of that team. In fact, that was your last game for the Indian team. That semi-final, everyone was backing India in 1987. India lost to England in that semi-final at the Wankhede Stadium. Since then, this is the first time India has played England in a World Cup semi-final at the Wankhede. That time you were there as a player, faced disappointment. This time as a commentator. I know not the same thing, but some sort of retribution you'd consider this one?
Yes, I think I don't have happy memories of my last ever match for India, where in the semi-final England beat India in the first ever World Cup that was played away from England and the Reliance World Cup at home. So I don't have many happy memories. And therefore, whenever there's a semi-final in Mumbai, in the Wankhede Stadium, you just tend to feel a little bit nervous. But this was an outstanding performance. To keep your nerve the way that they did, despite the fact that they were getting a hammering in the middle overs, it really speaks volumes of this team's character.
Today, of course, India's won the game, Saibhai, and we'll obviously analyze what are the areas that India will have to work on ahead of that final. But just briefly, if I could pick your brains after this semi-final, any areas that worry you a bit about this Indian team ahead of that final?
I think it's the bowling in the power play, and because the bowlers are not bowling to their field. I know it's very difficult with just two fielders outside the 30-meter circle to be able to restrict the runs. But one can understand the shots that are played. But when you are allowing the batters to play all the reverse sweep and all the different shots because you're bowling a different line, that makes it difficult to then control the flow of runs.
Okay, Saibhai, I know you've been very generous with your time, but one final question before we let you go. I know this 100 by Jacob Bethell comes in a losing cause. Nonetheless, talk to us a bit about this youngster, just 22 years of age. He's been in the IPL as well, an all-rounder, but the kind of knock that he played at such a young age on such a big stage, what does this tell you about Jacob Bethell?
Oh, it's a brilliant 100. I mean, from somebody who's been talked about so highly in England as the future of England batting along with their skipper Harry Brook. Brilliant, absolutely, because again, the kind of innovativeness that he showed, some of the shots that he played, some of the control that he had over the shots that he played, some of the shots that were up in the air for sixes, and some of the shots that he played along the ground for boundaries. Basically, he just seemed to know where the fielders were not standing, and he was hitting the ball between those fielders and getting the boundaries. So that outstanding batting. And really, I think 100 in any form of the game is amazing, but 100 in a T20, where you hardly ever get too many deliveries to play yourself in, is out of the world.